Okay, so on to our 3-point editing controls in the cut panel. Now, these are all going to be quite familiar, but they do behave differently, so I understand this can seem a little bit like retreading old ground at first, but do bear with me, because if you just kind of go charging ahead, these tools are not going to do exactly what you want them to, or exactly what you might expect to begin with. So let's first take a look at the Smart Insert. So the standard insert function is replaced by the Smart Insert function within the cut panel, and it behaves a little bit differently. But first, let's go over how 3-point editing works in the cut panel. Let's take a look at establishing our I/O and how we handle all of the normal stuff that we're used to. So let's take a look at setting our I/O, and then we can begin our basic 3-point edit practice. So I've opened this rush. I'm just double clicking on this rush to open it, and then our JKL shuttle works exactly the way it used to before, and
You can do this? I used to.
and O also work as well. So we now have an I/O indicator on this little timeline down here, which also shows us the waveform for this clip. I can change the I/O. I can drag these little things down here, and that will give me a first frame versus last frame comparison as I drag around. Also, this little kind of thumbnail display is quite a nice touch. It shows me exactly what I'm getting in each frame. So that does make quite a nice little aid for trimming. And also I can see the waveform as well. Now we have these brackets, this little kind of wide bracket at the left and this at the right. And once I begin to trim this I/O, once I begin to alter this I/O, I get these two, or these four little kind of fast forward reverse symbols as well. So on the left hand side is basically just allows me to trim the in point for my I/O, exactly as if I were clicking and dragging this little icon down here. And on the right, exactly the same, but for the out point. Now these little arrows down here, they let us nudge either our in or our out point forwards or backwards by one frame at a time. The left two arrows affect the in point, and the right two arrows affect the out point. So I can click, and what that does is it nudges the in point to the left for every click, and the other arrow nudges the in point to the right for every click. And these two affect the out point. So if I want to get this down to one frame, I can do. It's worth pointing out, using the cut panel is a very mousy way of working. There are lots of mouse clicks. Like there are keyboard shortcuts still. There still isn't a dedicated tab for cut panel shortcuts in the keyboard shortcut editor, which is another frustrating deficiency here. But it is a very mousy way of working, and it's aimed at beginners, it's aimed at vloggers, and people who aren't expected to learn to operate a keyboard in the way that an editor might be expected to. So that does make a certain amount of sense, although I always find that keyboard shortcuts are the best way to do this. So I've set my I/O. I can click and drag as per usual, or I can F9, and that makes an insert edit. And I'm going to do this twice, so we've got something to work with. Now, we're talking about the Smart Insert, and that does not behave in the exact same way as the standard insert edit. And that's why there's now a new video on this one, because I'm sure that you remember how to I/O and 3-point edit, having completed the entire previous project. But this command, this basic insert command, is a little bit different in this panel. I'm going to drag my playhead back here, and let's say I want to split this clip with an insert edit with something from a different rush. Now, a standard insert edit, we know, splits a clip and pushes it forwards if the playhead is not at an edit point. Yeah? But watch what happens if I do that in the cut panel. It hasn't actually split the clip. We still only have 3 edits on our timeline, and I would expect to see 4. If that clip had been split, we would have added 2 clips to the timeline. So, the Smart Insert does not split the clip if the playhead is not on an edit point. If you pay close attention to this screen, what you will see is this here little animated white chevron. And this is pointing at the edit point, the join, closest to our playhead. Now, what the Smart Insert does is it makes an insert edit at the closest edit point. So it will never actually split a clip in the same way as the classic insert edit operation in the edit panel. So it keeps everything intact. And that's because we're not typically looking at kind of very sophisticated edits with this tool. And it's to try and help us save time. Rather than dragging all the way back, all we have to do is kind of go back past, okay, that's close enough, now F9. Smart Insert at the left edit point. It can be a much faster way to go back and add material into our edit. It does not give us as much control as a standard edit function, but it still has its uses. So let's go over this again. The F9 edit, the standard insert edit in the cut panel, has been replaced with the Smart Edit tool. The Smart Edit tool will make an insert edit at the edit point closest to your playhead. And remember that insert will then ripple everything to the right of that edit forwards in order to respect the duration of the insert edit that you are making. You can tell which edit point is going to be affected by this because there will be a white animated chevron above it. This is the closest edit point indicator. So we don't have to go all the way back here. We don't have to Alt-E. We don't have to use the up or down keys. We just get close enough there, and then we can hit F9. Alternatively, we can hit this button here, which is the Smart Insert button. It is on the lower part of the media pool towards the center left. And we just hit that button, and the exact same thing happens. That is Smart Insert. Now, using multiple video tracks can get really frustrating in the cut panel because the tools don't really behave the way you would like to on anything above the first video track. The cut panel likes the first video track and wants you to spend most of your time cutting in there, and then there are some other functions which are aimed at different tracks. There's the place on top function in particular. But the inserts and other tools act a little bit oddly when you start getting more than one video track in your edit. So we're just going to take a quick look at this behavior now. So over here in the left, I can either right click and choose add track, or I can hit this icon here, which is the little ingot looking thing with a plus sign on it. That will add an empty video track. And then I want to be really careful about what I'm going to do next, because the thing is, if I've had reliable crashes using the F9 shortcut to try and insert onto an empty video track in the cut panel. I want to activate this track. I want to hit the number of the track here. I want to click on track 2. And then I'm going to open up this rush and I'm going to drag it down to avoid that awkward reliable crashing problem. And I'm then going to drag another edit down as well. Now that I've got 2 edits down here, it will behave in a stable fashion, but the edit function isn't going to do what you want it to do. So here's what happens. The closest edit point to this playhead is here, as indicated by the chevron. But if I go to a different rush, and I do my I/O, and then I F7, first off, what it's done is it's extended the edit as we would expect from the insert command, because obviously insert ripples everything forwards and makes this empty space underneath. But if we look closely at where it's gone, it hasn't, if I Control Z back, it hasn't inserted here. So if I hit F7, it was meant to appear here, but what it's actually done is it's found the closest edit point on track 1 and used that as the start for the insert, even though we're editing on track 2. And this is a really, really frustrating thing about the cut panel. I hate this, and it drives me nuts when I'm trying to work. So if we're going to use the insert or smart insert, keep it to track 1. Basically, it's very frustrating, and I really hope Blackmagic fix this later on, because even the edit point indicator is telling me that that edit should start somewhere else, right? It is so frustrating, but there we are. Right, we've spent long enough covering this. It's been 10 minutes already, so we're going to leave it there. The smart insert's a nice feature. You just have to remember that little quirk about it being anything higher than the first video track. It's going to start behaving pretty oddly. So try and keep your insert operations to the first video track. So that's this video. In the next, we're going to cover 2 functions. We're going to do a quick recap of append to end of track, because that's back again. That wonderful function is back again. And we're also going to take a look at ripple overwrite. So click on through to the next lecture,